Chris owns an F3 racing team.
Next thing you know, he's a major sponsor of the Brisbane Bullets.
Every homeowner wants the most amount of money and they want it as quick as possible.
REIQ, best agent, 3 years running, $6 million a year in gross commission.
Probably the biggest thing for me was I embraced video 15 years ago.
Just go home! Are you too good to go home?
So we did a spin-off of Married at First Sight. So a groom turns around and I'm presenting him the key, but he's marrying the house.
Oh my God.
100%.
We got 120,000 views in 4 days and we sold for 200 grand over.
It's so cool.
We were young and 18 and making good money. And I blew it all. That's the problem, I think. People see where you are now.
Because I want people to understand where you actually started and what it was really like, because a lot of people today are just going to hear this story and go, 6 million a year, I'm in, but it's a journey. Why not auctions? I'm genuinely curious about why that you think it's better the other way around.
Like, I can be as brutal as you want because we're here.
Be blunt. What is up, guys? Today we have an extremely special podcast for you. We have in the studio Chris Gilmour, who is the owner of All Properties Group. Now, a lot of you have probably never heard of Chris, but this guy has won Southeast Queensland or Queensland REIQ Best Agent 3 years running, $6 million a year in gross commissions, major sponsor of the Brisbane Bullets, has his own F3 racing team. It is an incredible interview of an ordinary guy that came from Browns Plains. That's where I'm from, which is in the outskirts of Brisbane, to becoming this really successful, low-key, nice dude that's absolutely crushing it. If you've ever thought about life as a real estate agent, you've thought about getting into that business or what it's like to build an actual business outside of just being an agent, you're going to love this. But it's not just for agents. This podcast is for anybody in business who is looking to create an edge. Chris unpacks how creativity, authenticity, and just being different in a business is the key to unlocking growth where others just don't see opportunity. You're going to learn about how he innovated, how he grew, and it's just a great interview. So, guys, make sure you watch to the end. Right to the end, there is stuff that made all of us on the pod here sit and go, oh my God, that is mind-blowing, and it's in the last 5 minutes. The last thing I want to say before we actually get into this pod is drop a comment below and subscribe to the channel, because we will be picking out one person randomly from the comments below this video, and we're going to give away a free iPad. There's only two things you got to do. You got to have a comment below, and you got to be subscribed to the channel, and we're going to draw a winner in an upcoming episode. We're going to come back to this episode. We're going to look at the comments. We're going to randomly pick one. And as long as you're subscribed as well, you're going to win the iPad. So all you need to do, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and let's get into it. Bye for now. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Unemployable, Australia's fastest growing podcast, or so we say. Welcome. So good to have you guys back. And thank you for all the amazing comments that you have been leaving in our YouTube channel. We really, really appreciate it. And it really helps our guests know that the content is landing. We have such a good guest today, Chris Gilmour, a local from here in Queensland. I'm just going to sort of frame this by saying this may be the most unknown, under the radar dude who's just crushing it in the real estate business. After today, more people are going to know you, which is wonderful. I know that's not what you're here for, but if you're watching this and you're somebody that likes to fly under the radar but produce huge results, Chris is going to be a great guest for you. Mark, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, pretty good, mate. I'm excited for today's podcast. Another fellow real estate agent, racing driver and motorcar enthusiast. So it's going to be awesome.
It is going to be awesome. We're both F1 boys. So for those listening, Chris owns an F3, a Formula 3 racing team, is a major sponsor of the Brisbane Bullets. And all of this has come from starting life as a real estate agent and transitioning to business. I'll give you some headline numbers in a minute. But Eric, how are you, buddy? What's going on?
Very, very, very good, mate. Glad to have Chris on. We've known each other for a fair few years. And I've seen his journey.
We met on it was a cruise, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a cruise. You got to be careful what kind of cruises. There's a lot of different cruises out there. So, it was actually a P&O family cruise.
It was.
This was before kids, though.
Oh, right. Really?
Yeah, before kids. So, yeah, I've seen his journey along the way, and I thought, you know what, you'd be a great guest to come on.
Wasn't one of those cruises where you throw your key card in the bowl?
It was definitely not one of those cruises, unfortunately.
Where do you sign up for those cruises?
Oh, my God. So, guys, this is going to be a great pod. Chris is, started life in the same place as me, Browns Plains, in the outskirts of Brisbane, as a real estate agent. Won recently 21, 22, 23 sales agent of the year in Queensland, best medium-sized agency in Queensland, gross commissions personally of about $6 million a year right now, which is just phenomenal for anybody, let alone being an agent, working hard, obviously, over a lot of time. And there's a lot of stuff we're going to dive into around his business, the All Properties Group, which is going to be exciting to learn the journey from being an agent to being a business owner and still an agent as well. And a sports, obviously, you're an Ironman, you're an F3 team owner, we definitely want to dive into that, and sports sponsorship and so much more. But before we dive into this, I just want to, as always, thank our sponsor of the show, Early Bird AI. For those of you watching for the first time and you don't know what Early Bird AI is, this is a company that Eric and I actually funded, two young guys from the Gold Coast who are basically helping businesses around the country and even some overseas to implement AI into their business. No matter what business you are, whether you're a real estate agent, whether you're an e-commerce seller, no matter what, if you've got a website and you talk to customers, get a free audit from the guys at Early Bird AI. To do that, you just go to Early Bird, which is EARLI rather than Y, bird.ai. So earlybird.ai. The owners, Chris or Sam, will sit down and do a 30-minute free audit with you and show you exactly how you could be using AI, not to fire employees, but to repurpose them into higher and best use. Some of the applications that we've seen are just remarkable. The amount of repetitive work that is being taken away from entrepreneurs, free them up to do creative things, and they do bespoke work as well. So very, very interesting business. Definitely pop over and see the guys there. It will cost you nothing, and they're terrific people. I'm using it in my e-commerce business. Eric's got it in a few of his businesses now, and they're just really, really good people, and they'll actually do the work for you. They're not selling education, telling you what AI is. They actually do the work, build it for you, for your business custom. So thank you, Early Bird AI. We appreciate you. And today we're going to jump right in because I just can't wait to hear this story. It's such an incredible story, starting from Browns Plains, scaling on just the personal agency level to $6 million a year in GCI, gross commission income. Yeah, I think is that the way you say it?
Yeah.
GCI?
Yeah, gross commission income. Yep.
Gross commission income, something like that. And we've grown from there. But Eric, why don't you give us a little bit of background about your connection and how you guys met and your friendship?
Yeah, so Chris and I, we met on a cruise, actually. I was there with Jen at the time, not my wife yet. We were just not even engaged. That's how long ago it was. It was about 15, 16 years ago. Started making a little bit of money when I first arrived and thought, you know what, I want to go on a cruise now. So we went on a cruise. I think it was where do we go? New Caledonia.
Vanuatu.
Vanuatu.
Yeah, just the Pacific.
Yeah. Met Chris and his lovely wife Rachel on the boat, and just kept in contact ever since, to be honest with you. Just, not that we've, very, very close friends in regards to, catching up for,
We generally meet on the beach at Broadbeach.
Yeah.
We're staying in our unit and we're walking along and, there's Eric and Jen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we just kept in contact, and it's been good to see, his growth in the business over time. And next thing you know, he's an Ironman, and next thing you know, he's, he's always been since I know him in the F3, car racing. And next thing you know, he's a major sponsor of the Brisbane Bullets, and I'm like, fuck, this guy's doing all right. This guy's crushing it. Like, Jesus. It's making me look like
I'm
shit.
just blowing a shit ton of money.
There you have it.
Yeah.
So, Richard, we might get you to throw up in post a few photos or video of F3 cars for those who can't picture them. They basically are mini F1 cars,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
They look the same. They're a little smaller, but it's full-on high-level racing. And maybe we could start, because I know there's a lot of people out there that probably thought about getting into real estate at some point or another. And what I love about your story is that you said something when we were having a coffee before we went on camera about you didn't want, what was the line? You didn't want to be famous and out there. You just want to be famous with the clients or something?
Yeah. So like when you see all these agents around Australia and stuff like that, and they've got, everyone ranks everyone and whatever they do in the industry. We sort of fly under the radar. And I always say I don't need to be famous with my agents. I only need to be famous with my clients.
Yes.
My clients are the ones that pay us.
Yes.
I don't care about the other agents. They're competition.
That's a pretty massive thing. Like so many agents that are getting into the industry, I saw it when I was selling land. They would be all about their Instagram and all about their Facebook page, and it's like, well, how many sales are you doing? You know, these are the most important metrics that count.
There's a lot of smoke and mirrors and a lot of fake it until you make it in the industry. And I think the award should be show us your group certificate. And that's that's how it should be done.
Yeah, that's the real telltale, your tax returns and so on.
Yeah.
So tell us how did you get into, like when you think of agencies, you know, like I remember I started in Browns Plains as well. And for those who don't know what Browns Plains is a low socioeconomic area of Brisbane, especially when Chris and I were coming up back in the day. And I think I might even be older than you. And, you know, it was a very low socioeconomic area. I saw a comedian recently said, if you don't know what, he said, I'm from a low socioeconomic area. If you don't know what low socioeconomic means, you are too. And I was like, I was just laughing because I was like, yeah, that's where I was from. But, you know, when you think about these places, I started out selling vacuum cleaners door to door, going Logan, Waterford West, you know, Brazil Hill, out Ipswich, you know, all these sort of low socioeconomic areas. That's where I learned to cut my teeth. And my boss used to say to me, you know, this is where you learn to sell. You started selling in Browns Plains. How did you get into real estate? What drew you to real estate? Who was Chris at that time?
Okay, so very similar to you, and you wouldn't know this, but I was selling home security systems door to door.
ADT or something like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we would travel all around Queensland and northern New South Wales, but we would always find, obviously, the low economic or socio-economic areas.
More crime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lots of break-ins, yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was door-to-door selling, and I made really good money out of that and blew it all at the casino. And as you do when you're young and 18 and making good money. But so that's how I sort of transitioned, because my dad said, like I said, I want to get into sales. You know, if motor racing doesn't turn out, I've got to fall back on something. And I've always been pretty good at talking crap. And so he said, look, go and do door-to-door. And if you can cut it at door-to-door, commission only, you should be pretty right doing whatever. So I did that for a couple of years, commission only, made some really good money. Yeah. And then I sort of settled down with my wife and went the very normal, just go and get a normal 9-to-5 job. And I got really sick and tired of just waiting for customers to come in. So that's why I got basically into real estate. I walked straight across the road because there was a real estate office across the road from where I was working. And I basically just walked in and just said, I want to, one, I was attracted to the money. Two, I wanted to be paid on the amount of effort or work that I put in. You know what I mean? And that was the beauty about real estate. And that's really just how it came. And plus also too, I had flexibility to still go and motor race.
Was this in Browns Plains?
Yeah.
And what agency was it?
Harcourt's at Browns Plains.
Harcourt's Browns Plains. You just walk in the door.
Yep.
How old were you?
So I was 26, and I still remember the interview. He said, why should I employ you? And I reached over, grabbed the pen out of his pocket and then grabbed a piece of paper, and I just wrote a dollar symbol. I said, that's why.
Yeah.
Because I'll make you a shit ton of money.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And what did he say to that?
Well, it's pretty easy to get into real estate. I think if you've got a heartbeat, you're employed.
Yeah.
That's what we sort of say. But like when I got into it, I didn't know real estate at all. I was getting paid 20% of the commission. The boss was taking 80%, which is just ridiculous.
Jeez.
Like I was getting absolutely stung.
Yeah, wow.
So, which like, you know what that is.
Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. It is now. Yeah. But back in the day, I was on 20% of the commission. I was doing all the work. And then after 8 months, I turned to the number one sales agent, who was my business partner now, and just said, look, if you're ever opening an office, I'm coming with you. The very next day, he came with a spreadsheet. He said, this is what it's going to cost to buy in. And 8 months after being in real estate, we opened our own office.
Wow.
And that's incredible. That's how it came up.
So before we get into the growth of All Properties Group and this incredible story, let's talk a little bit about what that was like. Day one, you're a real estate agent on 20% of the commission in Browns Plains. What did you do the next day? Like, what was the journey? What was the reality? Because I want people to understand where you actually started and what it was really like, because a lot of people today are just going to hear this story and go, 6 million a year, I'm in, but it's a journey.
Yeah, like, and that's the problem. I think people see where you are now, like yourself, you know, like they wouldn't have seen you back in the days in the dorm doing what you were doing overseas, and like no one sees. So like like in real estate, you do a lot of door knocking, cold calling, letterbox dropping. So I would be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I brought a postie bike. I used to run. And then I got a little bit busier. So then I'd go on a push bike to speed it up, because this is how, you know, you'd get your business. Then I got a postie bike. So I got my motorbike license, brought a postie bike, dressed up like a postie so I wouldn't get caught. And
Seriously?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like I love these stories.
Absolutely.
So you're dressed up as a postie in Browns Plains.
So people would come out, and I wasn't the postie. I was Chris from All Properties Group, and that's how I'd meet people.
Is that
in my area?
I used to drop flyers for Herbalife. I was selling Herbalife, lose weight now, ask me how. Mate, I've done everything. But I used to go around and drop flyers and lose weight now, ask me how when my day job finished in Browns Plains, to try and get customers to buy my weight loss stuff.
Yeah.
Dressed as a basil.
So, Ray, you're on this postie bike,
and
you're dropping these flyers to say, hey, would you like your house valued or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'd do a newsletter. I was very entrenched in the community. So I picked a core little area, not in Browns Plains, but close to Browns Plains. It brought it up to, it was Druvale. So it was Brisbane City Council. A little bit more expensive real estate as well too. And I lived there as well too. So people knew where I'd lived. They would see me walking. They'd see me out and about in the community every single day.
Impersonating government officials.
Yeah. But like, they're allowed to ride along the driveways and the grass. So if I dressed up like one in the high vis and, you know, I had the bags on the side and shit like that, like I wouldn't get caught. The cops wouldn't look at you or anything like that. So I did that, and I did that for about 8 years. I was letterbox dropping still after 8 years.
Wow.
I would still do it myself because I knew it was going to be done right. It was consistent. I know the days that there was no junk mail going into that area as well. So whenever I did it, it would be by itself. And people would come out, they would see you, they would talk to you, and that's just sort of really how it started. So,
Do you remember your close rates from back then? How many houses you need to drop to get a listing?
no, but like it was, I worked in a very small area, but I saw a market where no one really picked the suburb where I was living. It was sort of like the forgotten suburb. But when I looked at the numbers, there was 80 sales a year. So I'm like, if I could get 60 of those, like you're making very good money out of that. And then, so I got to a point where I think I was running at around 83% market share.
Wow.
83.
Yeah.
For the suburb.
Yeah.
So talk about those early years, right? Because this is the thing. We sit down with entrepreneurs every week here, and we hear the headline number, they're doing 20 million a year in sales or 170 million a year in sales, whatever. When we had Grant in here a couple of weeks ago with Nutrition Warehouse, he started in the outskirts of Brisbane, right?
Yep.
I said, tell us about the first store. And then where were you at the end of 1 year? Where were you at the end of 2? About 2 years, only had 3 stores. Today he's got 111 stores. So with your journey, you're 1 year in, 2 years in, what were the early days like from an income perspective compared to where you are now? Where did you start?
Yeah, so like first year, I think I did, my first year was about 110,000.
Right.
I said I want to make 6 figures. And we did that. And then I'm a control freak, probably like the majority of you guys and most entrepreneurs are. We like to control everything that we can. But I sort of felt like if I'd let that go fairly early and I grew a team, then the income should grow. And then I think from there, I think we went from about 110 to I think it was about 350, 400K. And then I think about my fourth year into real estate, I was doing $1 million plus.
And how many years ago was this?
2007 we started.
So 2007.
$1 million.
So your first million would be in 2007 or?
No. That was 110.
Yeah, so that was what, 2010, 2011?
Yeah, probably. It was, like when the GFC hit.
Yeah, 08, 09.
Yeah, so we were a couple of years after when the real estate went just completely terrible.
I mean, that's incredible by today's standards, honestly. But back then, that's real money. You know, there's twice as much money in circulation now as then.
Yep.
Correct.
From an inflation point of view, more than twice. So, so you really did hit the ground running pretty hard. I mean, 110 grand in today's world, first year in real estate is incredible. But back then, that's amazing.
Yeah, but like I think I had that mindset because when I was doing the door to door, and I was making a couple of $100,000 when I was 18, right, doing door to door, and I blew it all. And I always said my next job, I'm going to put 100% in. I'm not going to screw this up. You know what I mean? And because I didn't really try. You know, we'd work 4 hours a day and then I'd be at the casino.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you're 18, like no bills, no responsibilities, nothing. And there was nothing to do and we're always traveling. So I was like, where's the local pokies, pub, whatever you know.
What were you doing training personal development wise? Because I remember, was it ADT that you were with?
Yeah.
So what was the name of the fella? He ended up going to prison, the guy that ran that joint, from memory. He was quite a high profile dude. I think if it's the same company.
I wonder if he got caught with his own cameras.
No. I remember this story. But anyway, I don't want to defame the guy if that's the wrong guy, but I'm not sure. But only because I can't remember what happened. It was unrelated to that. It was something else. But were you doing training and stuff like then? Were you reading books? Were you one of these Tony Robbins people? You were just like
none of that.
Gift of the gab. Just
hard work, man. I think anything in sales is relationships and just being relatable.
Yeah, right.
That was pretty simple for me.
Yeah, but I remember meeting you on the cruise, and very personable, and that's what it's about, right? It's like you have that personality, that outgoing personality, where you can go up to anyone, shake their hand, say hello.
Yeah.
Have that elevator pitch type of personality, and
I think a mentor that I had once said that good salespeople or good selling is just a transfer of enthusiasm.
Yeah, energy.
So you're there, so you're running around, you're doing the postie bike, you've started off, you're cranking pretty early in business. What was the early stages of like transitioning from being an agent? So you were 8 months as an agent and then you bought 20% into the agency?
Yep.
Correct?
Yep. And
then what was the transition like from going from an agent to being a owner? Were you still primarily selling as well? Or
always been
selling?
a selling agent, even
Always.
today.
Yeah.
So, I have a CEO, I have everyone else around me. And I think that's, as I've grown, I've had really good people beside me. You know what I mean? Because I know what my skill set is. My skill set is getting into that home, listing and selling. There's more money in that than being the business owner, to be honest. As well.
You're not going to make $6 million being the CEO.
Oh, hell no.
No,
I don't pay my CEO anywhere near that.
The best real estate agencies have obviously a great rent roll, and the principal is doing a lot of the selling or the listing at least.
Yeah. So it was, I don't know, that was the journey. It was just, but I don't really run the business.
Right.
At all.
So I think you said you have a team of 10 around you.
My personal team is 10,
10 people to help you facilitate that level of sales. So 6 million in GCI, how many transactions is that roughly?
250 odd a year.
Yeah. So that's a lot of paperwork and a lot of administration, right? If you're selling 250 homes, because that's a home nearly every day. Like
it's take out some weekends.
Take out some weekends and you're there.
There's really, you got to double that, because in real estate, selling established real estate, you got to make 2 sales: the listing and then the actual sales. So.
Yeah, but like then also too, you've got to get into the door. You know, and you don't get, you've got to get into 400 or 500 homes to be able to list, 70% of them, and then of the 70% that you list, do you sell 80% of them? You know what I mean? It's all numbers.
Yeah.
It's purely numbers game.
How did you get a listing back in the day? So you talked to somebody, was it the old strategy of, hey, would you like to have a chat about what your home's worth, or this is what's happening? What sort of stuff were you doing?
So because I did the door knocking, I said I'll never door knock again, even in real estate. Like the amount of naked old ladies I've seen in my years, I'm not doing that ever again. I kid you not, man.
Naked old ladies don't sell houses?
Yeah, but like I don't want... Majority of them were in Mackay for some reason. I don't know why, but anyway. But I always said I wanted an attraction agency where they call me. Okay. Right, so I've never cold called and I've never door knocked. Okay, so I've just made sure that, which you being in real estate, it's probably kind of weird. It's very backwards. So I would always do the opposite of everyone else, but I always made sure that my brand was clean, my content was clean. This was even before social media and online, and it was all, print media. So I made our brand look attractive, that they would want to work with us. And I've always had that. So I've always had that attraction agency or that attraction name that they'll just call.
Can you give us an example of how we might experience your brand in the real world that defines what you've just explained?
Yeah.
So what do you mean it's clean and it's an attraction agency? Like, how would that show up in the real world?
I think just around our brand is very consistent.
Right.
Our message is very consistent. Like if you go to Logan and you would see our brand everywhere. So I've got like 7 billboards on main roads. We've got buses, 70 bus stops. Like everywhere you'd look, you see us. But it's the same look. It's the same photo, same image, everything like that. But we were always known for just getting amazing results, because I never did auctions. So I was always against the grain of everyone else. Everyone would promote auctions. I'm anti-auction. And I was always known as, and that's why I've got the tagline, Australia's fastest agent, only because of the racing. But we would always sell homes very quickly, but for amazing money. And that's very simple in this, to get that sort of branding, that they want to deal with someone that's going to be no fuss, no bullshit, straight to the point, and get the job done.
Especially in those areas, right?
Absolutely.
That's the nature of people there.
And did you promote that success within your branding?
Everything.
Or that
Everything
style?
was, even on our signboard, sold in 48 hours,
Yep.
sold in 6
Yep.
days. Everything had
Time.
a number to it.
That's the
right?
inbound hook.
Absolutely. It was always that. I don't do it now because we call that ego marketing. It's not info marketing. But when I first started, I had to, and I also, probably the biggest thing for me was I embraced video 15 years ago. I was probably one of the first to do videos. And we would always just do outlandish videos to basically just, so like, look at me sort of thing. Like I've always been against the grain.
What's an example of an outlandish video? Did you recruit some of these old ladies? Be honest, Chris.
No, not at all. Okay, so like back in the day, I would be in the back of a ute in a chicken suit. I would be driving a car in a gorilla suit and then walking through a home. I would have an owner spraying me with their hose while I'm talking about the house at the front of the, like, just stupid shit. I look back at it. It's all on my YouTube. Like, all the videos are there. There's over 1,000
one of my
videos
favorite ones, right, was you walking into the house, straight in through the house, and at the back, the house had a pool. And he used some animation or whatever it was, and he's walking through, and all of a sudden his tie just goes whoosh, and then his shirt just goes whoosh, and then his pants just go whoosh, and all of a sudden, by the time that all happens, he's at the pool, and he just goes right into the pool. Like, it was just so cool. I remember that.
I don't know.
It was yesterday, yeah. It was so cool.
So those would be on the listing pages of your website, these outrageous videos, just to get attention.
Yeah. But they'd also be on our flyers, so we used to use QR codes and other ways before they were cool, before COVID and all that sort of stuff. So we've always just promoted ourselves very big and very large, because I had to against all of the other agencies, because you've got to understand, like, you've got the well-known brands, we're a brand new brand, you know what I mean? So we sort of had to really cut through that noise very quickly.
So you made people laugh, really, with some of that marketing as well? Or
Just,
what was the
Memorable.
mindset behind
Attention.
Okay.
It was just eyeballs and attention and going, well, no one's even doing pole shots or drone shots or floor plans. So we're coming in doing professional photography, drone, floor plans, video. We're just doing a whole lot more. And then we're saying, well, we're getting these results because of this, and we're getting amazing money. Every homeowner wants the most amount of money, and they want it as quick as possible.
And were you borrowing those things from other industries? Because I remember when I was selling land, I would try and borrow different things that I'd seen in other industries. Like, where were you coming up with these ideas to be different?
So our content people that we had, they would always, because I was a little bit probably loose in that, and because we weren't a franchise, I had no boundaries on my brand. I'm like, I'm not being guided. Like, I'm allowed to be on the signboard, and I'm allowed to promote my name, and that was a big thing why I wanted to start my own, was because people list with people, they don't list with companies.
Yes.
It's real estate, right? So it doesn't matter if I was black and white real estate or pink or whatever, they would still list with Chris Gilmour. So
Well, I think you missed something there. They will list with gorillas and chickens. 'Cause
Absolutely.
That's what you were promoting back then, eh? But I just thought of that. Like, you look at Ray White, you look at Harcourts, you look at these LJ hookers. They would never allow their agents to dress in a gorilla suit and do a video.
Not at all.
Or do any of those types of videos that you were doing back then. So that's quite a competitive
They're
advantage.
starting to become a little bit more lenient, but it's only if you're one of the top sellers. Like, there's that Rubenstein, and
Yep.
you don't have that leeway until you get to that level.
You just don't see that much innovation in marketing these days. Like when we were coming up, do you remember Kim Illman from 1300 or 1-800 call, selling the call numbers?
Yep.
And there was Crazy John, John
I remember
Ilhen.
Crazy John.
The late John Ilhen. And more recently, Adrian Portelli. These guys that have really been innovative in their marketing, like Adrian having his $3 million Aston Martin or whatever it is. McLaren.
Yep.
Yeah, lifted into the penthouse. The coverage he got globally from that happening, this $3 million supercar that can't even be registered. But, Kim Illman used to, back in the day with the cricket, he used to have all his guys, he'd buy all the tickets down by the fence line that was in direct line with the camera that used to shoot the batsman at each end. So just all day, forget the ads, the whole cricket was like 1-800 whatever.
Wow, what a great idea.
And they banned it because of him. But he had the messages on hold. That's what it was, Kim Illman. He now follows the F1 around as a photographer.
Oh,
that's Kim Illman.
That's okay.
That's the Kim Illman.
Yeah.
So Kim Illman, if you follow him on Instagram, is now a full-time F1 photographer.
That's amazing.
And a really interesting cat, but he made his money from that messages on hold.
So that was him.
That's the same guy. It's the same dude.
Absolutely. I love
he's a killer marketer. And then after him was John Ilhen. And John was brilliant with his mobile phone company because he, when The Block was on, it was the first series of The Block was the biggest TV show. It was like Married at First Sight is now. Biggest TV show in Australia. The whole country watched it. And he had the brilliant idea of turning up dressed as the company mascot, which was the big crazy clown. And so when they were doing the auction, primetime TV, final episode where they auction off the houses, Crazy John was there dressed up as a clown. Everyone's like, what the hell is this thing? And it had Crazy Johns, and the cameras couldn't get off him because he was the top bidder. So he bought the property and then just flipped it. But he had 15 minutes of prime time, non-ad space by dressing up in his company mascot. And so the only guy I've seen really innovate at that level since has been Adrian Portelli, and he's now a billionaire. But I think it's really interesting hearing you talk about that with real estate. It's like, if I was an agent right now, I'd be thinking about, okay, everything's being done a certain way, photo, video, floor plan. What else can you do that is going to get attention? And I can see why that would have worked.
Yeah, so everyone, we all have the same tools right now, but so we've gone another level now. So I have a full-time drone pilot in my office, and I think we're the only ones in Australia, but we actually now fly our drones through the home.
Wow.
Just again, another point of difference. So we're always constantly looking for that point of difference somewhere.
And you were, 15 years ago into content? Content's a buzzword today, but to be, at the forefront of content marketing back then
my
would have
YouTube
been...
was 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah, but imagine the attention, right? You'll get attention now being in a gorilla suit or a chicken suit selling a home. He did it 13, 14, 15 years ago. That's why, when I was following him and his journey and seeing this stuff, that's what intrigued me. I'm like, this guy's doing some cool stuff, and that's where I kept just following Chris and, creating that relationship over time, because I'm like, this guy's thinking outside the box, and he doesn't give a shit about what anybody thinks.
Yeah. And if anyone at home is listening and has an e-commerce business and thinking, how is this relevant or transferable to them? It really is. I was speaking to my ads manager for Meta, and he's explaining how to go about, winning on Facebook ads. And I said, oh, great. So once we solve the puzzle, what stops people from, scaling this to 100 million? And he basically said content. He said at some point the content will stop working, or someone else will come out with better content. So you really have to always be ahead of your game in creating content.
Well, you look at High Smile again. I always mention High Smile, but those guys are so innovative around a few simple products, toothpaste, tooth whitening, but their ads are always varied. They got dressed up as, in banana suits, and they're $1 billion a year revenue in business, but their ads are super accessible, but constantly changing. It's like creative is where you win.
Yeah, and even the pop-up stores they make, proper pop-up stores in the middle of Sydney CBD, they have a pop-up store for 3 days and just lineups. They did one where they were doing tattoos, teeth tattoos. So they had all these kids lining up to get a tattoo kind of thing, on their tooth.
Innovation is
unbelievable.
where
Something
it's
you wouldn't
at.
think about.
What I'm interested to hear, Chris, it looks like you were going to say something there.
No, I was going to say, I think the problem for real estate agents in that space is because of the corporate brands.
They're
Right.
restricted.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're very controlled.
And I love it.
That's your competitive advantage,
Absolutely,
right?
mate. That's why we started our own, And our agents have just free run to be as creative as they want.
Maybe I should take that with Sutherland Group, the off the plan. We have a real estate business that does off the plan, and we're not governed by any corporate, as well. Whereas most of our competitors
You
are.
you really should encourage it. Like I used to work for Stockland, and I've got friends that work in the main brand real estate agencies, and they weren't even allowed to have a Facebook account or an Instagram. And that's how I started selling a lot of land. Is I just put myself out there when no one was doing it in real estate. Started recording videos. But it was my boss, Nigel Satterley. Like it's a private company. He owns it. He was encouraging me to go out there and do that. Like I think you probably do.
I
with your
encourage
stuff.
everyone to go to these franchise groups. Keep doing it.
Cut all that we just spoke about.
You go to the franchise groups because it leaves more to you with the innovating.
Absolutely, and plus they're losing 10% off the top as well too.
Yeah,
so I'm 10% in front of them.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. I'm interested about your anti-auction, right? Like, why is that? Give me, because I've been pitched with every property I've sold recently have been auction processes. So steel man the other side of that argument. Why not auctions? I'm genuinely curious about why that you think it's better the other way around.
How long do we have?
No, go for it. I mean,
Yeah, go for it.
everybody
I think
here, most people here listening to this podcast, I can tell you right now, when they're getting pitched, a vast majority of it's true, right? A vast majority are going to be pitched on going to auction.
Yeah.
Maybe you could, from your perspective, say why is that? Why do most agencies say go to auction, and why do you believe that it's not the best way?
Like, I can be as brutal as you want because we're
Be
here.
blunt.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. So the franchise groups promote auction because it's on the market longer, because it's a 4-week campaign, so they get more exposure around the agent and the brand. Okay, they believe they're going to meet more people, which they'll actually meet less. So it's more around a branding thing for the companies. Okay, they will say that it's going to produce the best buyer and all of this sort of stuff. When you have a look at the statistics, more homes sell private treaty than they do auction, because an auction, you've got to be a cash, unconditional, no conditions sort of buy, which takes out like 67% of your market. So are you attracting 100% of the market when you take a property to the market? No, you're not. Plus, it's a 4-week campaign for something that may not get a result. Your home's on the market longer, other properties are going to come to the market on week 1, week 2, week 3. And if that's easier for that buyer to buy, then they're just going to jump on and buy that other property. So there's multiple reasons why I choose not to. Probably, again, against the grain, everyone pushes auction, so I'm going to go, look, I'm anti-auction. I actually have another system which creates more competition, more offers, higher price, and with an auction, you've got a reserve. So the seller has to sign a reserve price, so that's your number. Now, if you've got 2 buyers bidding for that property and you stop and you're $1 more and you're above reserve, you're sold. But you still could have had another 100K in your pocket, but because you stopped, he doesn't have to spend it. So I personally don't believe it's the best way to produce.
You don't think it's market, like when markets are red hot, it's better to auction?
There's other ways. Like even under private treaty, you can still do multiple offers. You know, like there was a property, we did it last night.
Like a tender.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, but even with the price on it. So like one of our properties we did last week, we had 42 offers.
Wow.
You're not going to get that at auction.
I see. I'm from Canada, originally, and there's no such thing as auctions in Canada. Like even US, it's not a big thing.
No.
It was only when I came to Australia, and even telling my friends and family back home and stuff, auction. Like, what do you mean? Like it's like proper, like a car auction? I'm like, yeah, it's exactly what it is, except you're buying houses.
And a lot of agents are scared to say a price because they don't want to lose the listing. So we have this term in real estate called buying the listing. Who tells the biggest lie will win the listing. So I've never, and again, that's probably why we're attracted to sellers. Like we're no bullshit, cut straight through it. This is the best way. And like every home's going to be different. Like I've still taken properties to auction, but different markets, different demographics, different homes, different areas. It's not, but like these agents just go, that's the way I have to do it. And they go in and pitch 100% of the time the same thing, which I won't do.
It sounds like you know your target market real well, right? Like you've niched it in, you know exactly what they want. You stick in those areas.
It works.
Like we were talking about this outside. I'm like, when are you coming to the Gold Coast? He's like, I'm on the Gold Coast. I'm in Pimpama. And I'm like, I don't think of Pimpama as the Gold Coast, but really
we call it Upper Logan.
Yeah, but really it is a part of the Gold Coast, right? I'm thinking like, why aren't you in Broad Beach? Why aren't you in Surfers? Why aren't you in Mermaid, right? And I love what you said outside. Yeah. it's so cool.
What did he say?
What did you say? Leave us all hanging.
Well, can we say it on air?
No, I think it was basically just because
We're
you know
coming,
you've got
but we want to do it with the right people.
Yeah. So and also that there's so many agents trying to sell one property. They're all fighting over that one property, that one multi-million. Everyone wants that $10 million property because if Chris's average sale is 700, he's got to go and sell 12, 13 properties for every one, as an example. But there's only so many $10 million properties to sell, and there's so many other agents that are chasing that $10 million property.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's thinking about getting into real estate, I think you said it at the very start. There was you looked into a suburb, there was 80 sales. There wasn't really a main agent in that suburb. It really is supply and demand with that as well.
It's just research and knowing your numbers, because that's all real estate is.
And everyone watches these real estate millionaire TV shows and they want to sell the glamorous property, but that is really the most competitive part of the market, because everyone's trying to sell in those areas.
I get so frustrated because me owning a real estate business, totally different, to be honest with you, off the plan versus secondhand. But I tell the agents till I'm blue in the face. Now, I haven't been a real estate agent myself, right? So I'm a little bit different on what I say and how I say it, because I can't say it from me actually doing it. But I'm like, ring the database, make the calls. He or she who makes the most calls, will get the most sales. Like it's a numbers game. It's exactly what you said, right? They're not just going to fall on your lap. You got to do the work. And that's the reality. You've done the work, and it's just compounded over time. Yeah.
I have 3 full-time people that call all day. Like, we're probably doing 150 to 200 connects a day. I have 3 of them full-time.
What's the conversation? Just, hey, it's, Chris Gilmour's office, we're just calling to say, hey, just to let you know of recent sales, or how's the dialogue?
Yeah, so it depends on the type of call and what we're calling for. I don't go for the throat, where a lot of people are trained, hey, Adam, it's Chris from All Properties Group. Have you, if you could get an amazing price for your property, would you consider selling? Like, man, I'm at Woolworths right now. I'm dropping off the kids. Like, no. So ours is just very more conversational sort of base, just to build that relationship, because I don't know anyone that has rang someone at that particular time and gone, you know what, I've been sitting on my couch waiting for someone to call me today to come and sell my home. So ours is just more like, if we're ringing around a property, it would be, hey, Adam, it's Chris from All Properties Group. You probably would have noticed we've just listed, 1 Smith Street down the road. What we're doing is we're building our marketing campaign for our buyers, and we're just asking all the owners that live in the street, what is the best thing about living here in Southport?
Yeah.
Oh, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And you have a 10-minute conversation. Hey, Adam, when we sell the property, do you want me to just let you know what it sells for? Yeah, of course. Thanks, Chris. And then bang, follow that up when you sell it. And that's just how we start that relationship.
Yeah.
Not selling a thing.
It's great. I get a couple of young guys calling me on the Gold Coast because I've sold some property in Burleigh, some commercial properties, and I have a real empathy for them when they call me, because I know that they probably just joined the office, they've been given the database, and they're calling through, and I always make a point to be really nice to them, but also because I know how hard it is to get good property as a buyer. I buy commercial, so I always say, hey, thanks for calling me, I really appreciate it. Not in the market right now, but I know I'm probably a minority of calls that actually makes them feel good. And I say, keep up the good work, mate. Like, this is how you build a business. Well done. Good. And I give them the encouragement. But you're so right that this needs to be a conversation. I was going to ask you, because there's a lot of people listening to this who don't self-identify as salespeople, because they think, okay, if I'm going to be a car salesman, or I'm going to be a real estate salesman or woman, I have to be a certain way. But actually, many of the best are just normal people that can hold it. Authentic, right? Is that the case?
100%, because your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So, like, I'm probably, within my competition, I'm probably the most hated real estate agent in Queensland, right? But that's like, when you're at the top, you're going to be the most hated. My clients love me. That's all I care about. But there will be clients there that we just don't connect with, and that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, I want to work with people that want to work with me. I got that luxury where I can sort of choose as well too. But I think so many people fake it, especially in real estate. You're meant to have the Mercedes and the BMW and the suit, the pocket tie, and all of that sort of stuff. It's like, sometimes I rock up like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, this is me.
Yes.
I think that's important. I mean, obviously, anyone who gets into sales is loves making money. But if you approach the sales conversation with dollar signs in your eyes, the other person is going to see that. And I've seen some of the best salespeople, men and women that I've seen, they're just the best conversationalists.
Yeah.
And you can tell that they want to help at a level beyond what anyone else wants to help at. And the customer feels that. The person on the other end feels that and wants to buy from them. You buy off people you like, you don't buy off people you hate.
Yeah. But real estate, I believe, is one of the easiest. It's the hardest game in the world, but also one of the easiest games in the world.
Because it's so emotive.
Just high energy. Yeah. Walk in there, have a listen to what the client wants. This is any sales, no matter what you're selling. Like that's just sales.
People have got to connect with you and feel
Absolutely.
real. Like I used to smash it with Kirby vacuum cleaners because I had dust allergies. I still have dust allergies these days. So I'd go in there and start my demo, and about halfway through, I'm just completely allergic to their house. And they're like, "We got to pay off this poor bastard." Like, so I'd sit there with my big buck teeth and my bad haircut and trying to sell them this vacuum cleaner. But I'd say, "Oh, sorry, no, it's my allergies. It's not your house." And then they feel, it's just that empathy and that building of a relationship. And real estate agents, the irony I've always thought is that the guys and girls with the real money on the Gold Coast, for example, came up through a different era. And sometimes you see these real estate agents from Broadbeach, you know who you are, rock up with their pants that are like 2 sizes too small, their suit jacket that barely buttons up. You see them pull up at the coffee shop, park in the loading zone while they go get their latte macchiato bullshit. And everybody's sitting around going, what a fuckwit. And on his number plate is, listed or whatever the fuck they put on there.
Adam, that was me. My number plate is personalised.
But then there's other agents like you, and I've got some mates who are agents here that are under the radar that make 10 times as much, and they turn up respectfully well dressed, but not like a wanker, and have a real conversation with you. And you tend to find that these guys that are just making bank, that are just never forget who they're dealing with.
Yeah, we've got to understand, for real estate, it might seem glamorous, but there's suicides, there's murders, we've got drug dealers, we've got people that are bankrupt, divorcing. We see it. I have seen it all. You know what I mean? I could write a book on what we've seen and the clients that we've dealt with. So people just want to go from one place to another. And we're just that person that allows them to do that and try and do it as quick as possible and as seamless as possible. It's sales 101.
So how do you manage real estate, Chris, $6 million in GCI versus entrepreneurial business owner, Chris? How do you balance that?
Have a good team, good people around you. I listen to a lot and watch a lot. With what I consume, but there's a fine line as well too, being that business owner. I think it comes back, you're only as good as your staff as well too, because they're the ones that are out, representing your brand as well too. So I get asked that question a lot, especially around time. We will only have 24 hours in a day, and we seem to pack so much more. I have people walk in and I'm so busy, and I'm like, mate, you don't know what busy is, you know what I mean? But it's just how you allocate your time and stuff. So I think I've been very lucky with who I've grown up with, the advice I've listened to at a very young age as well too. They've all said, I wish I was young. When I have 18-year-olds come into the business, I'm like, man, you've either got time or money, and I'd rather the time, not the money, now that we're much older. And so you sort of try and pass on that advice as well too. You can just cream it now as well too.
Can you describe a young person that's joined your business that you're really proud of, their journey into real estate and how you mentored them and what their journey has been, just for young people listening that might want to join your team?
Yeah, so we've got a couple. We've got one fella, he was NRL, so with the Storm. So he obviously didn't make it because of some player called Cam Smith that you might have heard about. So he was both fighting for the same position. Came into us. He did, and this is the problem with real estate. They see all this money very quickly, but they don't see the 17 years that we put in. They just see it now. And I said, look, just follow and watch what we do. Listen to what we do. Do your apprenticeship like a builder or a sparky plumber. Do good 3-4 years, and then just take off. And so he's came in, he listened to that advice, does everything. I actually think he's better than me at it nowadays, which is great when the student becomes the master and stuff like that. But, and they're well now doing over $1 million a year. It just sets their family up. And that's kind of cool when you see him come in and You know, they're earning 50, 60, 80K a year in a job, and, you know, like now they're on 7 figures. It's kind of cool.
In commission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's making more than an NRL player now.
Yeah.
And how long has he been in the game?
We make more than the PM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy what they do and what we do.
And how long has he been in the game?
6 years.
Yeah. One of my best mates is one of the top agents here on the Gold Coast commercial, and he's mentored his son into the business. And his son's similar story. He's in his, I think, mid-20s, but just a super respectful, dresses really well, but not like a wanker. You know, just conducts himself well. You know what I mean? Like, and he's, I think, getting around that sort of money as well in his mid to late 20s.
Yeah, but mid-20s. Wait, give him another 15 years in the game.
God, he'll be making like you're making, you know.
Yeah.
And it's that's what I really encourage. I love these stories because I for young people listening, I don't know real estate, but I know business. And what I know is you've got to find the right mentor that vibes with you. And if you're one of those people that is not afraid of hard work and is not afraid of putting your ego in your back pocket and just listening to someone like Chris, you could do a lot worse than joining your organisation and being mentored by somebody who's not a dickhead and has gone on to own F3 teams, sponsoring the Bullets and had fun with it as well. Like, because sometimes you see agents, and I won't name names, but there are some that are just full on, like, and I can see they don't have a life outside of real estate. When they're not talking about real estate, they're talking about real estate. You know? You've got sort of a family, you've got a life, you're healthy, you train Ironmans, you still do your passion. I want to talk about F3 in a minute because we're both mad F1 fans. But I think for everyone listening, if you want to get into real estate, finding the right mentor who's, by looking down the road, Mark talks about this a lot, looking down the road at the life they're living. Do you want to live that life in all aspects, not just the gross commission income, but how they roll, how they live?
Yeah, and if there's people out there that are kind of don't want to do a 9 to 5, but yet don't have the capital to get into business or not sure whether they can make it in business, real estate for me has been... It basically was like running my own business from day one.
It is your own business.
From day one,
Yes.
even though I was employed and I was paid by somebody else, I felt like I was running my own business, had my own autonomy. So it's a great stepping stone for entrepreneurship. I think there's nothing that pays better than sales.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, when I asked you, how do you manage, sales Chris and the entrepreneurial Chris, and you said good people, right? What do you mean by good people? What's a good person in your world?
What's a good person?
Yeah, well, you said good people, right? So, when you're saying good people, I'm assuming your team.
Absolutely.
And how do you attract them?
How do you attract them? And what are the skills that you look for?
Okay,
And personal relationships as well, because that's super important in real estate.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, because we spend probably more time with these people than I do my own family.
Yeah, I just don't know how hard recruiting is.
Yeah.
Right, and I mean, so does Adam, so does Mark, right? It's one of the hardest things, right? So,
So how do you attract them and how do you keep them?
Yeah, so, well, we sort of take on the All Blacks, the
Ethos.
analogy.
Yeah.
No dickheads. And that's that simple, right? So I want A-grade players because if you're a C-grade player or a B-grade, like the A-grades don't want to play with the Bs and the Cs, right? So we've got about 75, 80 employees, right? Mate, I've probably had about 700 people walk through our door. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And we just, like, I don't know what the number is, but it feels like it's because you've got to hire and fire very fast because I think people show you with their actions fairly quickly than what their words sort of thing. So we ascertain if they're probably going to be a really good team player, what attributes can they bring. I always say stay in your lane, so I know what I'm good at, and that's why I don't run the business. I just list and sell. I have other people in my team that are really good with buyers, really good with admin, marketing, video, whatever. So I think it's just, going through those steps and just finding the right people who you get along with, who produces amazing work. And then I think those people then just attract other good people as well too. So I think it's all about your frequency and your energy that you put out into that universe. If you're manifesting that you're going to have the best people work for you, it just comes. It's just the way the universe works, I believe.
Is social media part of your recruiting now? Like, are you
Absolutely.
public? So yeah, putting stuff out constantly on socials, because I've seen some agencies grow up and do really well out of having a big social profile. So is that part of what you do as
Yeah,
well?
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a media company, a bit like what you guys do. So I've got about 9 in that company, and that's really, they're video, web, and social content.
But is that media including the listings and all that stuff for your business, or is it just your social media content?
No, so so you got property video in that,
Okay.
but majority, probably 70% of it is going to be more social based.
Wow.
wow.
Just social media team.
Yeah.
Wow. And is that all for the brand, or are you lending them out to your agents?
Yeah. So all the agents get to obviously
Use
use it. Yeah. So I'm not a real estate company. I believe we're a media company. All Properties Group is a media company, and
It's interesting.
basically the house is the byproduct. That's how we make our money. But like, if you have a look in our office compared to most offices, so I have 2 people that enter all the data for the agents, because it's an adult daycare centre, right? So what can we take away? Right? Hopefully they're listening to this.
Especially salespeople.
So, absolutely. It's an adult daycare. What do? I run an adult daycare centre, right? But basically I have everyone, I'm not offshore with anything. Everyone is employed in office. So like I have a drone pilot, I have a web designer, I have 4 graphic designers, I have prospectors, I have buyers agents, I have every single basically person within that business enabling to allow the salespeople to just go and do what they have to do.
That's awesome.
Which is unseen, really. Like, what do I invest in staff? I have more people employed than I do actually sales agents.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like that statement that you're a media company, that's actually for me a really interesting takeaway, because a lot of real estate agents would not think that way, and that's where the world is going, right? Like
We're all media companies.
Yes.
We all got to be thinking that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
But a lot of people don't.
Yeah,
It's
people
the same
say
thing with
this is why
unemployable.
we're doing with Unemployable is we're creating a deeper connection. Like, if people are watching this for 90 minutes, it's not the TikTok generation. It's somebody who's watched us for 90 minutes a week, sometimes twice a week, and we build that deep level of trust. And like yesterday, we were trying to fill a job, and the guys had got a job on LinkedIn and on Seek, and so I went and did a live while we had the meeting with the 2 boys, because we're the investors, Eric and I. said, what do you need? They said, we need this, and this. I said, all right, just went straight to Instagram, did a live. Said, guys, I'm here with the founders of this company. You've watched us from day one. They're on a 7-figure run rate after the first month. They're crushing it. We need somebody who's a fucking beast. And like, I could even say that on there because it's my audience. They have not stopped taking applications since we put that post up. That would cost tens of thousands of dollars for recruitment to find that person, and months of time.
Proper videos, people sending in proper videos on themselves.
Oh, we were getting videos arriving in our DMs because I said, send us a video of who you are so we get a feel for you, and then your resume to Sam. And like the Instagram, the DMs are just blowing up. But that's earned over media over time, and real following, not going out and buying fake bullshit, but actually real followers, real content.
Yep.
It's back to that relevance and credibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on the other side of this as well, if you're sitting watching and you're at a crossroads in your career and you're not sure what you want to do next, these are the type of businesses that you need to find. Like someone who's worked in real estate, that your company is the type of company that I'd be recommending people who want to give it a crack go into. If you got a little bit of passion.
I invested in a young guy years ago out of Melbourne. His name's Rob Sheehan, and Rob started a wheelie bin cleaning business here on the Gold Coast when he was living here, and it didn't work. But we put up the money behind him, just 15 grand or something to get him started. It didn't work out. And he said, Adam, what should I do next? And I said, you know what, Rob, you're such a good guy. You should go and learn real estate. Just go and join a guy like you, right? And he did. He joined an agency down in Melbourne, not one of the big fancy ones, but one where this guy had a great reputation in the area. Yep. And Rob's now crushing it. Years later, I'm sure he's making multi-7 figures as well. That's what I love about real estate, is if they just put their head down, do the work, and not be a dickhead for a number of years and build relationships. And the other thing I love about real estate is, in the last 4 years, most real estate in Australia has doubled in price. So all you guys have had a pay rise of 100% for doing the same job, right?
That's great.
Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone, but
So
it's true, right?
No, it's true.
You guys are indexed to inflation. You don't wait for a pay rise because houses are going up every year, and so is your commission. So that's such a good business. And if I had a young son or something coming up now that was at all interested, I would say go and join someone like Chris and learn sales. And who knows, you might end up loving it and staying there, but at the very least, you'll learn to sell, you'll learn what hard work is, you'll learn about people, you'll learn about relationships. There's worse places that you could end up.
For sure.
So what I want to ask you next is, F3. Let's talk about motor cars,
Let's go
right?
for it.
Like you're a driver, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, I've been racing since I was 5.
Okay, so you started out in go-karts.
Started in go-karts, then transitioned into Formula Ford, and then got into Formula 3 and
So
20
you now
years in
own a
Formula 3.
race team?
Yeah, so we've always had our own race team, and then so I was very lucky with mum and dad, and that we'd travel all around the country and race. And but I lost my dad 3 years ago, so we had a conversation as a family. Chris, what do you want to do? And I said, look, I don't want to race unless you're there because I've never done a race without dad. And we got to a point where we sort of wanted to keep that legacy going in his name, and so my brother and I. Basically, my brother runs majority of it. I'm just there for a bit of support and some other stuff. But I come back and just do one race a year.
So
Yeah, sorry about your dad.
Yeah, sorry about that, mate. Tell us about Formula 3. Is it all over the world? How does
Yeah, absolutely. You
So-
you would have seen it on the Melbourne Grand Prix.
So you're racing alongside Red Bull.
yeah, or whoever. Yeah,
Yeah, they've got a team in F3, I think.
yeah,
haven't they?
absolutely. Yeah,
So, okay.
I can pick my car up and go and race it in the Euro F1 anywhere around the world.
Wow.
So we're the fastest cars or the fastest category in Australia.
Wow.
So
Right.
they're good fun.
What does it cost to run an F3 team each year?
Okay, so you got to buy the car, you got to buy the truck.
So give us some numbers because I love this. I'd love to do something like
so-
that.
Team.
Okay, so for someone, so what we do is basically drivers pay us to race our car.
Okay.
Okay, so we've won the championship a number of times, so that's always a good thing. They want to be in a championship winning car and a team and stuff like that. So generally around 20,000 a race meeting. So if you were to come and jump in one of our cars, would be asking for about that sort of money.
20 grand per race to drive your car.
Yep.
And what does the car cost to buy?
So it depends each year. Obviously, if you've got to upgrade your car in Australia, we're sort of capped at the year models that we're allowed to bring into the country, but you can pay 180, 220 for a car, for a newish car.
And how much do you pay in repairs each month, each year when they're
Well, that comes back to the driver. So the driver, obviously, so if you were to rip a corner off, it's probably a minimum 10 grand. Your front wing's probably 3.5 grand. You got wear and tear on the engine. So the engine's got to go back to Stuttgart in Germany, back to Mercedes at the end of the year and get completely rebuilt. So in motorsport, right? So we have this saying in motorsport. So if you want to become a millionaire in motor racing, start with $1 billion.
Yeah.
So you buy this car for a couple of... It sounds like how do you make $1 million on the Gold Coast? Start with 2. That was the old saying, right?
Absolutely. So it's but it's one of these things. And my dad always had. We were always sort of the underdog against all the bigger teams and stuff like that. But we were very lucky for the last 7-8 years. We had backing from McDonald's for the team, so we could bring in a lot of younger drivers that didn't really have the money to pay that sort of money with the teams. And so some of our drivers, they're racing in the Lambo series, the Indy Lights series. I've gone over to Europe, F2 as well. So it's just bringing all the young fellas in now.
Does it net cost you money every year or does it break even or make you money?
Like if you break even, you're lucky.
Right. Yeah. So it's a break even sort of passion.
For the love of the sport.
For the love of the sport. But it's not a money maker for you in F3. But does it cost you money at all or not really?
Well, obviously, no, because it's sort of fixed in with the drivers,
Right.
with what they pay. So I think if they break a lot of stuff, then yeah, it can get expensive.
Yeah.
But it's it's just in our blood. We've always done it. It's the only thing I'm good at.
Do you go to the races very often?
No.
No.
Everyone's like, I had dudes ringing me on the weekend. They're like, well, are you in Melbourne? I'm like, man, if I am not racing, I
You
am
don't go.
nowhere near. Like at the Indy, like I'd race at Indy, I've raced at the Melbourne Grand Prix, I've raced Bathurst, like I've done it all. But mate, if there's a race meeting on and I'm not racing, I'm nowhere near the track.
Do your kids want to race?
No, they hate it.
Do they?
Yep.
Because I always feel for the parents. I was in Monaco last year when Jack Doohan got hit on the F2.
Yep.
And flames and the whole thing. And I was like, oh, fuck, I hope the parents aren't watching because it'd just be
Mick would have been there.
Mick would have been there, yeah. But I was watching it and I was just going, oh my God, like I was freaking out because there's a fair bit of fireball there, you know. Yeah.
Did you have any
It's all part of it.
ever any close calls?
Yeah, I've had a few accidents. So probably my worst was Melbourne Grand Prix. So that was in 2000 and when was that? 2006 or something. So I think we had a field of we had Bruno Senna come over from Brazil. So
Wow.
Senna's nephew was racing in it at that particular time. I think there was about 32 cars on the grid, and typical Melbourne style. It looked like it was going to rain, and we had to make the call on the grid because we can't change tyres or any pit stops during our races, right? So I had to make the call, and the call was on me. And I said to Dad, and I was starting, I think, 8th on the grid for the final race, and it was coming over black. And I said, no, I'll stick to slicks. Anyway, on the warm-up lap, it hailed.
Oh, no.
So I made it back around to the start, but they had pit lane exit entry closed for a pit walk for the celebrities.
Oh, no.
So we couldn't even enter because my race was over, and I knew that. So I was like, I'll pull into the pits, change our tyres, and at least just keep sponsors happy. Couldn't do that, so I had to grid up, had to start, got around to the other side of Albert Park as it loops around, and there was a Porsche crash in the race before. And obviously you can't see oil and water. I hit that, spun. I was 180. Because I started 8th, I was probably about midfield by that point of time. And I had my mate go through me at about 180k. So I snapped my leg in half, destroyed the car, wound up in the fence. It was live on TV. My wife was at home watching.
Jeez.
And it was the first time our category was ever live on TV. It was on for a minute and a half because I ruined it. And then next minute I remember having my suit cut off in the medical centre because I was out. And then I ended up in Prince Albert Hospital or something. So that's why I do Ironman. Because they said I'll never run again or whatever from that injury. So I'm like, nah, screw you. So I went and did 10 Ironmans.
So obviously that's where the competitive nature, right? That's obviously come from 5 years old in the go-karts. Is that where it's come from?
Yeah, I'm super competitive. Like I might look like I'm not, but like I'm here to win.
Yeah.
Like, and I take that, like business is a sport to me as well too. It's just non-contact. But yeah, I think, motor racing or whatever you do, like in real estate, you don't get paid for coming second. If you don't get the listing, you don't get paid. In motor racing, I've come second so many damn times, and that could have changed the entire career of, like my first year in Formula 3, I was winning. I was winning the championship my first year against all of the big guys, and we're just a little family team. And then so we were racing the final race at Indy. I was on my fastest lap and it started to rain, and they could see that the track was getting quicker. And the team who I had to beat, they put one of their drivers into the wall so they would red flag it, so my lap time wouldn't count. So they had to take my second lap time. And so I had to start further down in the grid because the track was drying, because it was wet, and then it was because I was on slicks. And so I had to start midfield. I'm an amazing starter. I'm probably the best starter. They call me Gun Start Gilmour. So like I can take it from 6 and be in P1 by turn 1. And I got an amazing start, and then I clipped someone and then into the wall, and my season was over. So I finished second, and then so that driver that won that year made it to V8 Supercars. I didn't. We then got invited to go and race for Prima over in Europe in the F3 series, but you had to take about 2.3 million, so whatever, to get over there. We just didn't have the money. So one of those stories. Got the talent, but not the money. So
F1's all about the money, right?
It's all money.
It's all money. So much of it, I've heard stories of guys turning up and to race, and the other guys go, look, I don't know why you're here, because my dad's a billionaire or whatever. You've got no chance. Absolutely. You're just going to have the cash.
So I think back in the day, a little bit more was around talent, but today it's a business.
Yeah.
I don't think many people realise that drivers have to pay for their seat.
Kimi Räikkönen did. Yeah. Like they all did.
Did you ever race against any household names or famous drivers?
So like all the boys in V8 Supercars, Ricardo back in go-karts back in the day, Will Power, IndyCar world champion.
Yeah.
So he's a good mate. Like he's just an incredible driver. So yeah.
Tell us about your tie-up with the Bullets. So you're a major sponsor of the Bullets. Why did you do that?
Love basketball.
You love basketball, same as me.
Yeah, so basketball's probably my second sport. So I grew up in that era of Jordan and all of that sort of stuff. So I love it. My boys play basketball. They hate motor racing.
I'm a mad NBA fan. I love it too.
Same.
Who's your team?
What's that?
Who's your team?
The Clippers.
Yeah, Clippers.
So, really? I lived in LA.
Yeah.
When I moved to LA, it was either Clippers or Lakers, and the Clippers were by far the underdog at that time. And so I was back when Blake Griffin was there and those guys. So I was a huge fan and used to go to games. But I just think it's an amazing sport.
Yeah. I don't have to ask who your team is, mate. And if you're
we've won once, all right? That's
mate, you've done amazing.
And I was in Canada at the time, so I loved that.
Good on you.
I was in New York City. I took the boys over and we went and saw one game in New York City, and it was the Toronto Raptors when they were top of the table playing the Knicks. and we're in Madison Square Garden, and it was the bottom of the table Knicks versus top of the table Toronto, and I'm sitting there, and there's this big African woman next to me, and I said, hey, what are you doing here? And we got chatting, and we're a lovely lady, and she said, oh, my son is actually playing. And I was like, oh, wow, amazing. Who's your son? It was Kyle Lowry, who's playing for the Raptors. Yeah, wow. And it was that game, like Madison Square Garden, New York crowd, and it was all night. There was no more than 4 or 5 points between them the whole game, top versus the bottom, because the New York crowd was right behind them. And Lowry dropped 45 points on the Knicks that night. But what a night. I was there with Joe and Aaron, had an amazing, amazing time. The NBA and sport is, I think if you've got some money, it's a wonderful place to invest, not only for networking, but just you feel alive. There's nothing like the passion and the competition of sport, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, the Bullets just can't win.
Yeah.
But do you enjoy going to games?
Absolutely, and that's why we do it. So, we sponsor some smaller community partners, but we get 40 odd tickets to every Broncos game. So I use that for my networking. That's where I get to see all of my clients and bring them, and we talk sport. We're not talking business. We do the exact same with the Brisbane Bullets. So in my package, obviously we get the national branding, which no one really does in real estate on that sort of level. So we wanted to be one of the first to do that sort of stuff.
What's the packaging cost like? Like for entrepreneurs listening to this that might aspire to sponsor a team like that, what are the range of sponsorship opportunities in Australian sport? Like for NBL, I'm talking about.
It depends on what sort of package you want. So, like, when I first started with them, I wasn't on the kit or the uniform or anything like that.
Yep.
I was more as a community, getting in with the schools and getting the kids to grow and play the sport and stuff like that. So that wasn't as big of as investment, but once you start being on the kit and jerseys and being a one of the major partners, it's quite a lot.
Right.
Yep.
I can feel your butthole puckering.
Yeah.
It's just like
I can feel the pain.
I choose to do it.
But are we talking like 6 figures a year to sponsor it at a high level?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like more than that.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's up there. Good for you. No, it's good. I asked because it's interesting and it's a fun way to spend money because of the network and the community and being around that competition. And you watch it in the States, the sports owners over there, and you just see how much, like Steve Ballmer used to be at every game courtside for the Clippers. It's just because it's what brings him alive. He was at every game for those reasons, I think.
It's definitely not his hairdo.
Yeah, so his hairdo. Chris, this has been an awesome interview. Thank you for coming in. Is there anything else you guys wanted to ask while Chris is here?
No, it's been amazing.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I think the viewers will get a lot of value out of this.
Yeah, something definitely different. And what can how can people contact you, Chris, if they want to join your organisation, if they've got that right attitude? How do they reach out to you? How do they follow you online?
Yeah, just all the typical socials: Facebook, YouTube, Insta.
How do we find you on Insta?
Chris Gilmour.
Chris Gilmour.
Yeah.
Gilmour.
OUR.
OUR. Yeah. Chris Gilmour on Instagram.
Yeah. Or All Properties Group.
All Properties Group, yeah. So follow if you want to get a career in real estate. You've got the right work ethic and long-term approach, and someone could be a great mentor for you. And
I'd love to speak to them.
Yeah.
If they got a bit of energy and enthusiasm, that's all I need.
Where are your offices right now?
Sunshine Coast, North Lakes, 2 in Logan, and Northern Gold Coast.
Right. So Southeast Queensland, basically. If you're in Southeast Queensland and you want a change of life and you want to move to God's country from Melbourne or Sydney or somewhere.
They're doing that anyway.
Yeah. Come on up and join Chris and the team. Honestly, I've been around for a while. So has Eric and Mark, and I think we all agree it's great when you meet somebody who's professional in the industry that you can see has actually got a good intention and in that game it really matters. Yeah.
What kind of animal suits do they got to fit in this time around?
Strictly professional.
So no one's going to be your favourite costume's the Borat outfit.
No naked interviews.
Depends what sort of views and stuff. So we're still doing some pretty crazy ones, but we're very strategic around what we're doing at the moment.
I just seen one actually. I showed Adam. I think it was Lawani Creek or Lawani
Palms
with you guys.
You
guys on the scooters, and you got that hip hop song. You see me roll and roll.
Absolutely. So we don't sell those properties, but it was someone that worked for us, and it was their grandparents, and they'd been on the market for months, and they're the hardest things to ever sell. And I said, look, I'll only do it if we can do a banger of a video. And so we got all the oldies, and I'm feeding them oranges in the pool, and you know, we're on the scooters, and like that went nuts. And we sold it, but like we just done another one. It's on our Instagram. You'll see it. Mortgage at First Sight. So we did a spin-off of Married at First Sight. So I had a groom turns around and I'm presenting him the key, but he's marrying the house, and then we're the experts, and so it was a complete spin-off. We got 120,000 views in 4 days, and then we had to sell the media rights overseas.
Wow.
So because it went viral.
So is that something you came up with?
Yeah.
Or is that your team?
Yeah, just the team. We sort of, you know, like we asked the owners if we got a bit of free run, and this is the idea and stuff like that. So like that one went nuts, and that one we sold in 4 days, and we sold for 200 grand over.
When you say you sold the media rights to overseas, what is that?
Yeah, so like if they want the rights to use the video, so you got to sign off the rights to them. So if I now want to use that video and show that video again, I've got to say courtesy of.
How much did you get for the rights for that video?
I don't even know. It's not about the money for me. It's more about it just going viral.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it goes overseas, and they run with it.
That's crazy. So this is the power of creativity, you know, and that's the thing that's just not available off the shelf. You've got to have that creative approach and willingness to try. But go and see the Instagram, because we were literally laughing out loud before you came in at some of your content.
Yeah, the Gilmour, the Happy Gilmour one was
the Happy Gilmour one.
Get in your hole. Did you see number 2's coming? It's a Netflix series. They released it yesterday.
Really?
I kid you not. Happy Gilmour 2 is coming.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But it's like you said before, right? You're a media company. That's what this is, right? That's what
eyeballs,
these videos are, right? It's eyeballs.
It's eyeballs.
There's only a few ways, you know. Some people they've got to have their thing, you know. Like you know, one of the guys we follow up in Brisbane who's doing big things in real estate is Emil, you know, and he's got his supercars, you know, and everywhere you go, you see the Lambos, and he's got every day he's got this stuff. That's his thing. You've got your thing, so you got to find your thing, and when you find it and it works for you, you got to double down on it. And I think that type of stuff, if you want to take on the majors, you've got to innovate, and that's what you're doing. So follow the socials though, because it is true creativity, and we were genuinely just laughing. And when was the last time you laughed at a real estate ad or wanted to forward on? The only guys I've seen, I think, were the unemployables. I think those guys that do the builders, but they also do the real estate guys, where they do the piss takes on like, this is what a real estate description is, and this is what it is in real life. Like it's hilarious, and you see the shares. It's just so funny.
There's another guy out of Brisbane, Dan something, and he's the one that gets all the personalized plates, and he calls it like Road to Wanker. Yeah. Like listed, sold, like all this stuff, and he posts them on his Instagram.
Another guy dressed up in the high vis gear, like writing people tickets for wanker plates, and like it's that kind of creativity and poking fun, even at your own industry sometimes, that is really viral. So it's good stuff. Again, thanks for coming in, mate. Follow Chris. Yeah, it's been awesome chatting to you, and thanks for coming in and making time. For everybody else watching this, drop a comment below, as we say. Let Chris know what you learned from today, and share the pod with someone that you know that might benefit from this. And we'll see you next time on Unemployable. Thanks for watching. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Unemployable. If you'd like to watch another episode, just click there.